6:14 p.m. on October 26, 2004, Dominique Green drew his last breath in Texas's Huntsville execution chamber. After 27 years on death row for the 1998 murder of Houston store clerk Samuel Briggs, the state delivered lethal injection despite international pleas for clemency from figures including Pope Francis and Desmond Tutu. Green's final act defied expectations. Facing death with serene resolve, he offered no rage or excuses, only a call for reconciliation that left witnesses trembling. "I walk into the light," he whispered to the prison chaplain moments before the chemicals flowed into his veins. What led to this moment began on a rain-lashed night that would fracture two families forever. November 7th, 1998, 10:43 p.m. Rain slicked the streets around the Quick Stop Mart, a family-owned convenience store in Houston's 3rd Ward. Inside, 54-year-old Samuel Briggs counted receipts at the register, mentally calculating how much closer the night's earnings brought him to his daughter Angela's Baylor University tuition. The door chime shattered the quiet. Surveillance footage would later show Dominique Green, a gaunt 19-year-old desperate for his next crack hit, shoving a stolen .38 revolver against Briggs's temple. "Empty the goddamn register!" Green's voice cracked with meth-fueled panic. Briggs complied, his hands trembling as he slid $287 across the counter. What happened next remained a subject of fierce debate. Prosecutors claimed Green executed Briggs in cold blood when the clerk couldn't open the safe. The defense insisted the gun discharged during a struggle. The grainy black-and-white video showed no audio, only a muzzle flash. Briggs crumpled behind the counter, clutching his chest as Green snatched a pack of spearmint ice gum and vanished into the storm. Samuel Briggs bled out on the linoleum, his final whispers shaping his daughter's name. Within hours, detectives would build a case riddled with fatal oversights. A flawed manhunt. With Green's face captured on surveillance tape, the hunt began. Evidence initially seemed irrefutable. His fingerprints smudged the cash register, and the murder weapon was found beneath a loose floorboard in his 5th Ward apartment. Yet cracks emerged within days. Crime scene technicians discovered male DNA on Briggs's shirt cuff that didn't match Green's profile. 2 eyewitnesses recanted their identifications, alleging police coercion. "They told me I'd do juvie time if I didn't pick Green out of the lineup," one later testified. Most damningly, Green's sister provided time-stamped security footage from her apartment complex showing Dominique microwaving SpaghettiOs at the time of the murder. Evidence his overburdened public defender never introduced. Despite these red flags, Houston PD closed the case in 11 days. They needed a win, Green's appellate attorney would argue years later. A black kid from the projects with 2 prior shoplifting charges? He was the perfect puzzle piece for their narrative. The trial that followed ignored every shadow of doubt. The trial, Shadows of Doubt. By February 1999, the stage was set for a reckoning. The courtroom reeked of lemon-scented polish and suppressed rage. Prosecutors framed Green as a remorseless predator, parading his juvenile record before the jury, while suppressing critical context. The jury never heard about Carl Razor Rizzo, a violent regular at the Quick Stop seen threatening Briggs hours before the murder. "I'll blow your fucking head off." Nor did they hear the ballistics expert's suppressed note about the fatal bullet's atypical rifling marks, which matched Rizzo's .38, not Green's. Green's court-appointed lawyer, later disbarred for cocaine possession during trial, called no defense witnesses and spent recesses napping in his car. After 90 minutes of deliberation, the guilty verdict landed. As Briggs's widow Marie sobbed into her hands, Green stared blankly at the ceiling fans. "Like watching a boy dig his own grave," a courthouse sketch artist scribbled in her notes. Outside the courtroom, a family's collapse had only just begun. The unseen casualties. While Green faced death row, the Briggs family unraveled in silent agony. His widow Marie sold the Quick Stop at a loss, developed crippling panic attacks, and died of heart failure in 2003. Daughter Angela, then 19, dropped out of Baylor and spent a decade battling addiction. She now runs Briggs Haven, a shelter for families of homicide victims. Her office walls display Samuel's community college graduation photo, his eyes shadowed by decades of night shifts, his mouth set in a line of exhausted determination. Every November 7th, Angela visits her father's grave. She unwraps a pack of spearmint ice gum, the brand stolen the night he died, and places it beneath his headstone. Dominique didn't just pull a trigger, she told the parole board during Green's final clemency hearing. He murdered my mother's will to live. He murdered the future where I became Dr. Briggs. As Angela grieved, a legal labyrinth would trap Green for decades in the gray zone. As Angela grieved, Green's appeals crawled through the courts like honey on ice. In 2010, DNA testing linked the blood on Briggs's cuff to Carl Rizzo, who was serving life for a 2004 gang murder. Texas courts refused to reopen the case, citing procedural deadlines. Over the years, Green's cause attracted unlikely allies. In 2015, Desmond Tutu visited his cell, calling the conviction a moral obscenity. 3 years later, Pope Francis sent a handwritten plea. Mercy is divine justice. The most haunting moment came in 2023, when Angela discovered a shoebox in her mother's attic. Inside lay 17 unopened letters from Green, spanning 2006 to 2022. She read only one, a request to donate his prison art earnings to fund therapy for her. I burned it in the sink, she later confessed. His guilt wasn't my medicine. In 2025, the state's machinery would override all mercy. The warrant, point of no return. On September 1st, 2025, the machinery of death finally lurched forward. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed Green's death warrant with a Mont Blanc pen. Federal appeals had been exhausted. The Supreme Court declined to intervene. At the clemency hearing, Angela Briggs delivered testimony that silenced the room. Don't make me another victim's family waiting decades for death. The board voted 5-2 for execution. Abbott's press release invoked the impartial scales of law, making no mention of the 43,000 petitions from 18 countries piled on his desk. Guards delivered the news to Green as he painted a watercolor of Psalm 23. He dipped his brush in blue pigment. Then we finished the journey, he said. What happened next in Cell Block 5 defied every expectation. Redemption on the row. In the shadow of death, Green forged an unlikely legacy. In Cell Block 5, he earned a theology degree through correspondence courses, taught 71 illiterate inmates to read using contraband Dr. Seuss books, and painted watercolors auctioned for charities, one raising $12,000 for Angela's granddaughter's leukemia treatment. Guards documented his rituals, nightly prayers at 3 a.m., Briggs' time of death, donating his dessert rations to homeless shelters, mentoring troubled youths through a pen pal program. He carried guilt like a boulder, Chaplain Reyes recalled, but he learned to carve it into stepping stones for others. When his final day dawned, he faced it with chilling calm. The final hours, October 26, 2025, 3 p.m. With 7 hours left, Green's cell radiated eerie calm. He declined last phone calls. For his final meal, he requested collard greens simmered in smoked turkey, black-eyed peas studded with jalapenos, and buttermilk cornbread. What my mama last cooked me when I was free, he told the guard. He shared the tray with Chaplain Reyes, discussing Sam Cooke's gospel recordings. When offered last rites, Green touched the cross tattoo on his wrist. God and I settled accounts years ago. Just tell Angela, I'm ready. At 5:58 p.m., the chamber door opened to an unthinkable scene. At 5:58 p.m., the chamber door hissed open. Guards removed Green's leg irons, a Texas tradition for condemned men. He embraced Warden Harris. Thank you for treating me human when the world didn't, he murmured. Strapped to the gurney, his eyes scanned the witness room. Angela sat in the front row, her father's dented silver pocket watch gripped so tightly its edges left marks on her palm. Then came a moment that shattered the execution's grim script. Fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets as the IV needles slid home. Green turned his head toward the observation glass. Angela? The name hung in the antiseptic air. She flinched. Chaplain Reyes began reciting Psalm 23. Green's lips moved silently with the words, I shall fear no evil, as tears cut glistening trails through the iodine swabbed on his temples. When the microphone clicked on, his words would rewrite the narrative, his final words. When the warden offered the microphone, the room held its breath. Green's voice emerged, soft as worn leather. Ms. Briggs, I took your father's breath. No apology will ever give it back, but your pain forced me to find my soul. Samuel's light reached me in this terrible place. I go now thanking him, and you. In the stillness, the tick, tick, tick of Samuel's pocket watch echoed like a second heartbeat. At 6:14 p.m., death came and left behind an impossible question: justice or grace? At 6:14 p.m., the chemicals stilled Green's heart. Angela Briggs walked out without speaking. Later, guards discovered Green's final watercolor taped to his cell wall, a sun-drenched quick-stop mart at dawn, its windows glowing gold. Hidden in the clouds above, tiny script spelled, "Forgive them." In the ashes of this tragedy, an unexpected legacy would ignite. What remains? Green's death ignited a wildfire of debate. The hashtag #UnbrokenGrace amassed 2.1 million posts overnight. Angela's foundation launched the Green Briggs Legal Initiative, funding appeals for indigent defendants. In Austin, lawmakers proposed the Briggs Act to preserve biological evidence indefinitely. Samuel Briggs's 7-year-old granddaughter now wears the stolen gum wrapper inside a glass locket. Papa's angel made bad things beautiful. The final truth lies in the chasm between two irreconcilable realities. Final thoughts. Dominique Green died seeking peace from the daughter of the man he killed. Samuel Briggs died whispering his child's name. Two lives bound by violence met their end, separated by inches of execution chamber glass, one in a prison-issue gurney, the other in a vinyl witness chair. The chaplain called it grace. The truth, like most truths, dwells in the terrible space between. Share your perspective below. For true crime where redemption collides with retribution, subscribe and tap the bell.